Okay, I think we are live now in YouTube. So hello, YouTube. Welcome to the last meeting of May for the build team. So yeah, let's start with the agenda. So let me set the document also here on the chat. If I managed to see the chat, which was somewhere here. Okay, here. Yeah. Okay, so please, if you can add your names to the document, that will be great. Yeah, so first of all, anyone has any announcement? I think no, so also no announcements from my side. So first topic in the agenda, it's going to be to discuss about the infrastructure for macOS 12 and 13, which is issue 3240. Yeah, this has been a long discussion. I can do a fast context if you want, so we can be on the same page. There are some interesting topics to discuss about it. So yeah, first of all, the idea is to see how we can fit the Macintosh 12 and 13 on the current infrastructure. So we try to include those in Orca. So we cannot make it for the macOS 13 with the current setup that we have in Orca because the nodes that we are using are not capable of running that version. So the maximum that we can get with the current nodes that we have is 12. We made a lot of space because we sunset we decommissioned the Macintosh 1014 machines. So we have some space left that we can use. So theoretically, if you follow the thread, I have been making a lot of tables on how we can try to schedule the different VMs inside of the machines. There is also one issue related to this, which is the alert that you might notice that we are running out of disk space in Orca. So there is also an additional challenge on that side. So technically, I think we have enough space in terms of RAM and in terms of CPU to have the 12 VMs on Orca. What I'm not pretty sure right now is how we are going to manage with the hard drive that we have, which is a terabyte. I discovered that today, and it's already an 80% because currently in Orca, the challenge is the images that we have and the VMs that we have. All the size, all the disk size they use is from the same space. So basically, if we have a VM of 90 gigas and then we have a image like acting as a backup of that VM and so on, we are doubling the size. So easily we run out of space. So that's one challenge. There is also another opportunity that we can get rid of on some of the bare metal instances that we have in Mac Stadium. So maybe we can just, kind of move those bare metal resources to Orca different nodes. So we can add, for example, ARM nodes. So that as well, we can cover the ARM architecture and so on. But it was a little bit challenging because I think we don't have a lot of contact directly with them aside of the technical supporting. So I'm not very sure. What do you think about it?
Do we currently have images for each machine, or is it an image per operating system version that we sort of clone? So I think when Ash originally did it, we had say one macOS 1015 image that was being cloned for each test sort of instance, but it did mean that you had to answer it, otherwise you ended up with two things trying to pretend to be the same Jenkins agent. But I think that's one way to potentially save a bit on disk space usage. We will probably still need one release image and one test image because they are different.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that's probably one way of saving disk space. I really can't help much with context because I wasn't involved with the initial setup. I other people.
That's a good solution, Richard. Yeah. Actually, I think before that we have some images, like one image per like base image. So it was like macOS the 10.14 or 10.15 and so on.
Yep.
And sometimes we get the problem to replace the keys. So when it's testing or releases and so on. So that's okay. So we can create two. Right now we have like a copy of each VM. I did that, I think, on January or something like that, when we tried to recover from a snapshot and then replace the names and re-ansible them and so on. So yeah, maybe coming back to that original approach will save us tons of space. So I can do some math around it and see how many space we can actually, free from just having one base image for each version for release and for testing. So that for sure give us some space. So maybe I have enough to cover the math. So in terms of hard disk, because in terms of RAM and so on, we have enough resources. What I'm not very sure. Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
We could probably make the release machines slightly smaller, because the only things we run on the release machines are the release builds. So we're not running like the entire Node.js test suite, for example, and the test machines run lots of different Jenkins jobs. So they're not running just. I don't think it'll be much smaller, but I don't know
how much smaller.
What I don't know is how much space like the operating system is up in the images. And I Ash has mentioned before that one of the problems is the sort of macOS auto updates, or it automatically downloads the updates at least. You might have to manually apply it, but and that can result in quite a bit of space being taken up by downloading the updates, and then you still need the free space to install the updates after it's downloaded. And I don't know what, because I don't really use Mac, so I don't know what sort of working space you need for running an image.
I can do the maths. So I can do some calculations. I have some spare Macs here, so I can do the calculations and see how is the typical operating system running, plus some download, so we can put some percentages aside and do some calculations. But probably maybe release machines can go with 60 gigabytes or something, because the testing ones are on 80. So maybe something on that direction can help. But I think we have more than enough.
How many different versions of macOS do we actually need? You said there's 12 and 13 were the ones we're looking at. Is there sort of individual subversions, minor versions within 12 and 13 we need, or is one just a 12 image and a 13 image okay?
I think it happened the same as the 11. So it's like we have like the 11X. So it's like 11 whatever it is, 12 whatever it is, and 13 whatever it is. I think that's the approach.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, currently we only have to support like 10, 15, 11, 12, and 13. So, but in terms of Orca, right now 13 not. So maybe in terms of base images is not a lot also. So that's okay. And in terms of the, making the change from bare metal to Orca instances, not very sure if we have any direct contact that we can ping on Mac Stadium area of influence kind of thing. So we can, see with them regarding the sponsorship and if we can do some changes and so on.
So what have we got in bare metal just now? How many have we got?
The ARM machines are all bare metal.
Yeah, there are 3 bare metal, I think. I think I put that in the issue somewhere. There are like 3 bare metal, if I remember by heart, that are, for macOS 11, ARM4 and 3 and 1. So there are 2 for testing, 1 for release for macOS 11 on ARM architecture. And we are not using half of the machines, of the bare metal machines, because they are super big machines actually. Yeah, it's like 8 giga RAM and like a huge disk and so on. So
what's the current state of? We've still got Macs in near form as well, haven't we? x86 Macs. What are they running? I mean, presumably
they're running. They are running. I can't remember now. Michael Zasser did upgrade the base operating system, but they are running 1015 VMs.
Yeah.
And the problem we had with the Nearform ones are we are really tight on disk space.
Yeah.
So at least for the Intel ones, and then we do have an ARM, an M1 Mac at Nearform as well, I think. So we've got both an ARM Mac OS 11 and is it two? I think we've got two Intel Macs, and the VMs spread across the two of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, maybe we can add VMs to the bare metal machines that we have in Mac Stadium, so that way we can have for the Mac OS 13 ARM at least, or 12 ARM actually. We can have them.
That may be worth looking at. Yeah, there is some. There are VM solutions now. I guess the question is whether we would need to get some other license to run that, or whether it's because I know on the Nearform machines we've got VMware license, I think. But I don't know about on like Mac Stadium machines whether that would come under the account or whether again it would be separate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the Apple do have what's called the virtualization framework, and I've certainly used that on ARM.
Okay.
And that basically when you invoke that, it can actually download a virtual image direct from Apple. So I believe that is a valid thing to do without an additional license.
Okay.
So you can actually spin up virtual machines that way.
Yeah, so that may be worth looking at.
Worth looking. Okay. Yeah, I think with that we can that unblock me a little bit, so I can keep pushing in that direction, and I will ping you if I need something else on that direction. So yeah, let me see how far I can go with the research.
Yeah, so it sounds like the only sticking point is the 13 machines, and I guess the number of backup images that we've got created. So, one of those I think we can fix probably without too much difficulty. The 13 a little bit more problematic. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, in terms of the bare metal machines, my only concern about moving them to Orca would be the resources in Orca, and if we got resources to cover, what we're running in bare metal in Orca as additional stuff, then that would probably be fine. But if it's no, we'd need to squeeze it into the existing stuff, then that seems like we'd be net losing rather than gaining anything. So
yeah, I honestly think that adding nodes to Orca will be cheaper in terms of infrastructure cost than bare metal. But yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing there is, at the moment through the sponsorship, we're not paying anything.
Yeah. That's it.
On the account, so it's more a case of whatever we've been given through the sponsorship, how can we make use of those resources? So yeah, I mean, at the moment the ARM stuff is bare metal because that's what we were given. So unless we're forced to move off it, or we find there's a limitation, probably best not to not to jump off it without.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and also we can focus more on having like macOS 12 working than 13. So maybe we can, when we remove 10, 15, we can start thinking on the 13. So that way. So, I mean.
Yeah, I don't think we need to do 12 and 13 at the same time.
Yeah.
We
can do it progressively.
And if 12 is the thing we can move to, then then maybe 12 is the thing to go to. Otherwise you can even make arguments to like skip 12 and go to 13, but if we don't have the ability to go to 13, then going to 12 sounds reasonable.
Makes sense. Okay. So we jump to the next topic in the agenda?
Yep, sounds good to me.
Okay, so next topic is 3220, which is related to access to Cloudflare. So I think...
So I can tell that. The issue was a request from Claudio. And I think we're still undecided as to how much access we want to give to someone outside of the build team. But I have looked at adding accounts. So far we've been all logging in. So the infrastructure team have been using the one build account to log into Cloudflare. But Cloudflare does have the ability to add members to the account. So I have added created an account for myself and then added myself to the build Cloudflare account. So that does work. I can grant myself different levels of permissions. In order to change membership, I do need to have the super user sort of role, which is basically the same as the build role. So basically the same as the account owner. But other than that, you can drop down to more restricted levels of access. One of the confusions I have is there are lots of roles in Cloudflare, but they sort of map to Cloudflare products. And I don't, some of them, I'm not quite sure what the Cloudflare product is actually offering in terms of, and then you get to things like sort of DNS and page redirections. And I don't know if those are the same permission or they're, two different permissions that are needed to do that. But at least in the sort of basics of, we can create additional accounts or individual accounts and then associate them with the build account with different access levels of sort of roles and permissions that being the predefined roles that Cloudflare define. That looks viable. And I think, at least for the build infrastructure team, I'd like to encourage the use of individual accounts rather than everyone going under the build IOGS account. For one thing, Cloudflare logs, like when you make changes, and it would be much better if instead of everything being logged under build at IOGS, change this. If I change something and it says, Richard Level changed this, then that I think would be better for us in terms of audit and things. And I think as well, going to the idea, there's another issue. I don't know if it's on the agenda about using maybe Terraform to do the Cloudflare configuration. That I think would also come under, we would probably then have an account to do the automation, scope down as much as possible to the bare minimum amount of permissions in Cloudflare to make those changes. So it does look possible and plausible that we can do individual memberships. The wider discussion as to if you're outside of the build infra team, and we want, we are comfortable with getting people outside of the infra team. It's another then discussion as to how much access. What is it exposing? There's one thing if it's read-only access, but if it's the ability to change something, then I think, for example, being able to change the DNS settings in Node is high risk. Basically, break a whole bunch of things if Node.js.org doesn't point to the right server. But in terms of progress on that, I have done the proof of concept. I can create my own account, which I have done, and give it a role. So I did give it a very restricted role at the beginning, and then found I couldn't do anything useful, at least from the infra point of view. But and then I went straight to the CP.
That sounds.
So I guess given the request that came in, the question is, can you grant yourself or your new account access to do the cache manipulation, clearing cache, that sort of thing?
I think so. I just can't remember what role, or if it was obvious which role.
Okay. That's good.
There is, I think, a specific cache purge role kind of thing. So there are plenty of roles, by the way.
There are lots of roles. And when you read them, it's not. So I think I got confused as to what Cloudflare Access was. I thought that might have been a general access thing, but it's not. It's a specific product. Cloudflare, which means then you're then going off reading their product description to try and work out what it is, and what granting that permission does or doesn't do. So I think that it is feasible, and it's then a question of sitting down and working out or agreeing what we're comfortable mapping to which users, if any.
That sounds good. Regarding the terraforming part for this, I will need to ask probably for the administrator read-only role, so that way I can fetch all the information from Cloudflare without making any modification accidentally or so on. So I made some progress. I created a POC for my own domains because I use Cloudflare for my own things, and I migrated to use the terraforming and so on, and I managed to have no downtime and so on. So if you want, I can ask casters for this, and then maybe create I don't know if we want to have that information private or public, so we can create a repository, ask permissions for create that repository, and then do the main tam, and then I can do like a POC or something to show you how the changes are, So that way it's easy. That will work, Richard or Stuart?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know what the public versus private. I don't know at the right of the moment. But yeah, I suggest if you haven't got one already, open an issue in build, just suggesting you want read-only permission. If you can figure out which of the roles, that would be helpful. Otherwise, we'd have to sit down and try work that out.
Yeah. I was checking. I think administrator read only one. It's okay. I will create an issue for that. And with that also I can, make the plans and all. And even if accidentally we apply, we don't have permission. So we'll give an error the CI or something. So okay. So that's good. And yeah, I can ask for the repository also offline. So that's okay. Okay. Sounds good for this topic on the agenda. Anything else for this topic, or should we jump to the next one?
Let's jump to the next one.
Okay, next one is membership audit, which is 3,144, and is...
Yeah, I think we've been punting that until Michael.
Yeah, this is waiting for Michael. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's skip that. I'll maybe ask him offline if that's all done or whether anything else needs to be done on it.
That sounds okay. Okay. So the next topic in the agenda is 3088, which is related to the Jenkins alerts and reporting. So yeah, you might notice that you have receiving tons of notifications when any machine was down. So we made some changes because there are some cron jobs that running at, like sharp the hour when it changed. So I moved the cron job for the Jenkins reporting like a 23 or something like that. So that way we don't face, the typical restarting machines. I'm working right now on a little feature to automatically close an issue if the machine is back online. So that will solve a lot, but still to be a lot of notifications for all of us. And I'm thinking also to implement a little feature for the disk space warning, when it's, I don't know, like over 80% or something like that, rise an alert. And if it's less than 80%, close the issue. So maybe that way it's a little bit more useful, but I don't know. Did you find the tool useful? Do you want to keep it?
Yes, I at least last week some of the Docker one of the Docker
the ARM ones,
the ARM one, and it did result in a lot of notifications because every container running in it was down. But at least it prompted me to go and have a look at the Docker host and found it was down, and then Stuart and Ed managed to work out how to get it back up. But it was at least we got the notification. And if we had the ability to auto close, I mean, I went through and manually closed all of the open issues. I'm okay with it. And if we can get the auto closing, I think that would help.
Okay. I will have that by today, I think. Yeah,
it's not always obvious, I guess, if an issue opens and then closes, if it's because it was temporary or whether that's because someone actually went and did some remedial work to get the machine back online. But I don't think that's something we can solve through automation.
I can include that on the message. Right now, it's only raising an issue if the machine is down, but not because we manually say it. It's like when it's actually down.
It's more like if the machine is properly down. So like, for example, on those ARM Docker containers, I did put comments linking back to a build issue that I'd opened because it was a real issue. But equally, if we had auto closing and I didn't put those comments in, then maybe those things would just get shut. And then you wouldn't be able to know whether that was a real issue or temporary. But maybe it doesn't matter. So in terms of just a warning, it's fine. I'm happy with.
Okay.
We've got that.
Okay, that's fine. I think we lost you, Stuart. Did you say something?
Yes, I was just agreeing.
Oh. Okay.
Do those alerts on the machines offline go to Slack as well?
No, but it's possible to do easily. I think, yeah. I can try to work on that direction if you want. Yeah, we can add it as a feature. Should we make the notification available in the build team, or should we make it? I mean, on the build channel.
There is a Slack channel for build alerts.
Yeah, that's one.
That's currently where Grafana is sending alerts.
Okay.
I don't actually know how that was set up, but given that it is working, it must be possible to do it. I'm not sure who set that one up, either Johan or maybe Ash, or whether it's something built into Grafana, maybe that it's slightly made. So, but yeah, I mean, it must be possible because it's happening. But yeah, so given that we've got the existing channel for, I think it's like build infra alerts or something.
Yep.
That would seem to be
Node.js Build infra alerts. That's the one.
Yeah. That would seem to be a reasonable place to post alerts. I wouldn't think it would be worth creating another channel. For that. And I probably don't want the build channel to be full of alerts because it would just mean we'll lose any other.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I would use the same one without question. I mean, I guess it's a matter of where are people actually going to see the notifications. I mean, obviously, if the issues are good enough, then we don't need it in here. But yeah, I think I'd find it quite useful.
Yeah, makes sense.
I probably monitor that more than I monitor new issues in build repository.
Yeah, I think I can do an easy automation, from Slack, even just pulling when there's a new issue on that repository, so that's easy. Okay. Okay, that's good. I will add to the to-do list. Yeah, I think we can jump to the next one, which is 3017, which is related to support for Linode builds.
Yeah, I've got no progress on that. I haven't done anything with it.
Okay.
No one's actually chased us up about it, so yeah, it's still there. I guess we need to reach out to Anton and see if it's still required, or if he's still even looking at Node.
Yeah.
Have you got a summary of this, Richard? What is the
issue was so at one point Node had very little maintainers, but no one was actually looking after it. And then Anton volunteered to do it and spent some time looking at it and getting stuff, I think, working again, or at least at some point. And then he was trying to enable CI via GitHub Actions. And apparently GitHub Actions, the runners are not powerful enough to run the Node tests for some reason. So he was looking to see to get run the Node tests running on like build infra, on the assumption that the build infra might be would have more resources than the GitHub runners, and that's about as far as we got. So we did used to have GitHub pipelines, I think, for Node, but they weren't maintained, so they were just there, but they weren't. No one had actually kept them up to date or working. So I can't remember if they're still there and disabled or whether I actually got rid of them, but they weren't being used. And the question was, would bringing them back and then letting someone get access to those and try and fix them up be the right way through, or are they so outdated that it would be better to create something from scratch and then let them, whoever is maintaining Node, edit, have edit permissions on the Jenkins jobs. But again, then if the GitHub runner isn't powerful enough, then the question is, well, what do they actually need for Node? What architectures, how much RAM, how much CPU, all that sort of question. And I don't think we had those conversations, or if we had the conversations, I don't remember what they were. So yeah, it's a general request, and it either needs following up or closing as not going to happen. I don't think there's a reason to close it as they're not going to happen, but given that no one's been pushing for it, and it may just be that Anton's been busy, or it may be that he no longer has time to look at it. But yeah, at least from our point of view, I don't think anyone in build has actively looked at it. So it's a bit rambling, but hopefully that was a good enough summary of where we are. Yeah, I guess if the other one is, if you're not sure what Node is a project that hooks into the LLDB debugger for the CLang LLVMs. So it's a debugging aid for looking at crash dumps through OLDB with some like node specific knowledge, so that you in theory you could point LL node at a crash dump and it should be able to then iterate through like heap objects, and that's the idea. But apparently it has been broken in the past through people not updating it with new versions of V8. There was a concerted effort when this was around the time this issue was open, which was quite a while ago now, I think, of trying to restart maintenance of it, but I don't know where it's got to.
That might be the thing to find out first, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So we jump to the next topic in the agenda then?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's the last one actually. Is the 2550, which is related to the build helper role. I think we have a really interesting discussion last time about it, but not very sure if there is anything new regarding this.
No, nothing new from my perspective.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I'm speaking. I don't think I actually went to see the recording. Is there anything that we are looking to add into this at the moment? What came out of that meeting last time?
I don't think anything new since like all the other previous times we've discussed it. The benefit will be if there are repeatable tasks that we can automate. And the question then is, have we identified any repeatable tasks? So either one of the things that's been suggested is being able to rebuild the website without, at the moment you can do it by re-triggering a GitHub webhook.
Yeah.
It requires you to have admin permissions on the GitHub project on the website repository to do that. But being able to re-trigger the website build, that's kind of like a workaround because we've got the other, we've got an actual bug with the website builds where if a webhook event comes in while the website is being built, it gets ignored. So actually, if we could solve that problem, that would probably alleviate the need to have to manually rebuild the website, triggered. But it's that kind of thing which is re-triggering a website build is a sort of thing that can be automated reasonably easily. And we know we've done it enough times in the past that maybe doing the automation may be beneficial and would allow people outside of the build team, we can give access to AWX that isn't the full blown build access. So again, that would need someone to map that in AWX. But again, it's one of those. I think the idea is sound that there might be some tasks that we can automate that may be beneficial to allow people that don't already have access to run those tasks manually to do it automatically, or even the tasks are so manual that having the automation makes things a lot easier, quicker. But it's identifying those and then spending the time coding the tasks up. So I think we've kept it there because it's nice to have, but I don't think anyone's actually had the time to spend doing it. Ash did have, so the one thing you can currently do in AWX is restart a Jenkins agent. So there is a playbook called Restart Agent in Ansible playbooks, Jenkins Worker, I think. So there is an AWX thing set up to run that playbook. And again, if we have volunteers or helper, the idea of the build helper role is a sort of catch-all, which is someone who could run a script in AWX who's not necessarily a member of build. Because if you're a member of build, you're not really a helper, you're already a member. So I can't remember, we may or may not have given Beth access to AWX, or at least I think we allowed her to log in. I can't remember if we gave her permissions to run the agent restart script. I don't know if we've, I guess maybe that's a question to the wider wider team whether we found ourselves restarting agents very often outside of we're actually changing the config and we need to, we do need to restart the agent because we've changed the config. In which case, AWX doesn't help us that much there because you need to be able to run Ansible properly to update the configuration of the machine. But if it is the machine has gone down and all we need to do is bounce the agent, then that is something that can be done through the role at the moment. I just don't, we just haven't given anyone that role. I just don't know if that is something that's happened enough that it would be a net help, I guess, is the question there. So, for example, the Docker host going down last week, you wouldn't have been able to fix that through this helper role because you couldn't even
the physical machine wasn't there.
To do the restart. So, and it's a Docker machine, so the restart script didn't work on the Docker machine. So, again, that existing role is limited to the agent is actually fine. It just needs to be restarted, which I guess in the normal scheme of things, you wouldn't normally expect to happen. It's I think it's a nice to have. But again, it's figuring out what is a benefit to put it through that whole automation and wire it up in AWX and then get people volunteering to know when to run it and to actually run it. But I mean, it may be, for example. So one of the other things is AWX can work. I just don't know if people are going to find the user interface intuitive.
It's a bit of a pain, but I guess we can do things like tutorial videos and so on for
maybe. So for example, one of the things I was thinking of was Stuart, you're more familiar with this. The unofficial builds, and sometimes we get asked to rebuild things, which may or may not actually be a good idea because I think that does cause some issues to the Docker team. But at the moment, restarting a build you need access to the unofficial build server. We could possibly spend some time doing like an AWX role to do that.
We could.
Again, I don't know whether we'd have people comfortable enough to go into AWX and run that role, or if they would rather have direct access to the machines to queue the restarts. Or I think people have suggested GitHub Actions, which then involves opening up like secrets into Actions so that it can talk back to the unofficial builds server.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I would still like to try and move that into Jenkins. Do the whole unofficial build stuff in Jenkins instead.
Maybe. So I mean those are the kind of things to consider for this build helper. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, we can explore and see, how often does that happen to I think, because for example, in my case, I didn't do a lot of restarting agents. So I think depends we maybe want to build the, like the wish list of the things that we can automate and see if it's a common approach for all of us. Because it's a tricky question, because at the last time we discussed about it, I proposed to include on the scripts, for example, the Macintosh cleaner thing, for the space and so on. And actually I didn't run it for a few months. So
So I mean, that could easily be the kind of thing that we might put in there. And again, it would be a case of writing a document or a video explaining what to do. Once we have that in place, I guess the first step to that is, can you write an Ansible playbook to actually do those steps? And then once you have the Ansible playbook, you can wire it up in AWX. But given that requires, that does require certain levels of access in order to actually run the script. That seems that, if we can do that and be confident that we can do it in a way that, isn't giving people more permissions than they actually need, then that actually seems ideal to open that up so that it, more people than just have access to him from Mac could then run the scripts. Because I think we did discuss with those running them in Jenkins, but the problem with Jenkins is Jenkins won't have that level of access. Jenkins only has access. Most of the Jenkins agents run as a limited user account. Because we don't want random Jenkins jobs doing anything destructive.
No, Jenkins isn't the right place to do this.
So yeah,
certainly makes sense. Just out of interest, when that situation of the Jenkins agent going offline has happened before and needed a restart, do you know what sort of things have actually caused it to go offline? Is it like running out of space or something, and so it falls over?
Space has done it, but not always, because sometimes Space does it. The agent goes offline, but it's not actually dead. Sometimes Space does kill the agent. I guess it's something to do with Java, or I don't know. I think I haven't seen it in a long time, but there was a problem at one point on the ARM machines where the agent actually died, getting some sort of Java exception back to do with something in crypto. So it's like something in the TLS layer went awry and killed the agent. I'm trying to think of any other things that kill the agent. I mean, it's usually something has killed the agent off. There was one where we had timeouts, where the server was timing the agents out. But we bumped the timeout threshold on the server, so I think we haven't seen those since, or not to my knowledge. So those are the ones that I remember off the top of my head. It would have to be something reasonably severe to take the agent down. I think there may be one or two platforms where the agent doesn't auto start. They're fairly niche platforms. So that also happens from time to time, where like a machine is restarted, but it doesn't automatically start the agent, in which case then that is a login, restart the agent. But yeah, those are the ones I remember. I think there's been a few times where we may have done it because we saw some weird behavior on Jenkins and we couldn't work out why. so restarting the agent was kind of like, well, let's see what happens if we restart the agent. But I don't recall seeing those for a while either. So yeah, in recent memory, I don't think I've seen that many instances where we've had to restart the agent where it was a pure, the agent has died, we need to restart it, or the agent isn't running, we need to restart it. But we have seen it in the past, and I don't know, maybe those scenarios have been dealt with. But Ash did put the effort into automate that workflow through AWX. So that does exist in AWX. To be honest, I've just been running the I think the last few times I had to restart an agent that way, I've actually just run the playbook, because I have the setup locally to just run the playbook on my machine rather than log into AWX. But I have occasionally done it via AWX, and the last time I did it, it was still working. I mean, it should work. We've not changed any of the keys or anything. So it would have to be something pretty severe to take the agent down. And not have it auto start, because most agents are running as services, and those services attempt to auto start and reconnect. So temporary network blips, for example, won't permanently take the agent down. And most of the Linuxes and Windows, for example, they will auto restart the agent. So even if the machine reboots, the agent will come back online. So yeah.
Yeah,
I think the only one I remember in the last couple of months was when we did the Java updates. So the agents they're not running on the right level of Java, but I mean, no amount of restarting would fix. They were just in a sort of start error loop. And I suppose maybe that would be something similar in the future, that Jenkins eventually updates the agent and the old agents can't reconnect. But again, the restart script won't help there. You'd actually need access to machines in order to upgrade the agents. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've seen anything in Adoptium any patterns. It may just be that that it was a problem in the past that isn't so much of a problem now.
Yeah, I think maybe
very few times that I've actually had to do anything, and usually it's the machine has suffered something that needs other attention before we can bring it back. So
exactly. So that's I think my gut feel now is that a lot of the build incident responsive kind of work we're doing is the sort of the machine is something has actually seriously gone wrong. Well, not seriously, something has gone wrong with the machine that requires the level of access that isn't just simple. It is a sort of, you need to log in and poke around and try and work out.
Actually, just to follow up on that, at Adoptium, we normally actually SSH into the machine rather than run the service that calls back. There's a bit of a mix now, but most of them are like that. So if the machine does come back, Jenkins will automatically reconnect to it anyway most of the time. That's a bit different from how we do it in Node at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, in Node we have the setup where the Jenkins has a firewall around it, and we need to pack copies of that firewall for each machine category. So in some respects, it's a different sort of model of security, I guess. I think you may have raised an issue saying that we might need to clean up some of the entries in the firewall. But
yes, I think I have at some point.
Yeah. That's just sort of omissions when
general housekeeping.
IP address.
Yeah, I think that was a very nice discussion. Let's see, anything else aside of the official agenda topics that you want to discuss?
I'll just mention that I'm going to start dismantling some of the benchmarking infrastructure. Not so much the physical machines, but all the automation that was syncing data between like 3 different servers. So I'm gonna start turning off the R-syncing so that we're not R-syncing huge amounts of data all over the place. The benchmarking stuff has been sunset for a long time. So I don't think you can even get to the old benchmarking website anymore. It redirects you to the main Node website. A casualty of that is the old coverage website. So there used to be a coverage.nodejs.org. That actually stopped working sometime last year, or maybe even longer than that. That was piggybacking on the benchmark syncing infrastructure. And part of the reason it stopped working is the R-syncs were taking too long to complete. And the number of people that actually understood how the R-syncing worked was 2, including me, and I don't actually remember how that happens. I actually have to go look it up every single time in the old GitHub issues to work out what I ran and when. So yeah, the coverage stuff is going away. I have redirected coverage.nodejs.org in Cloudflare to redirect to codecov.io. So we've been publishing coverage stuff to codecov.io for a long time. So we did have the 2 parallel coverage gathering stuff. One we were running on our own infrastructure, and the other one was running in GitHub Actions being published to codecov.io. So the stuff we're running on our own infra, I've turned off the Jenkins jobs, and I'm going to start dismantling the R-syncing stuff. Hopefully that should be all invisible and shouldn't cause any visible changes to people outside of build. But one of the things it might help with is the download server. So we were syncing benchmark results to the download server for the old benchmarking website. So if I take away that from running rsync, that'll be one less rsync process running on the benchmark. Sorry, on the download server.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for the update, Richard. Anything else that we want to include aside of the agenda? Any other topic?
No, I'm good.
No, nothing else we'll discuss. That's good.
Yeah, okay. So then we are finished then. So yeah, let's get back to 6 minutes. Okay.